Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the FordTechMakuloco channel. Today we're going to show you how to replace the coolant bypass valve C on your 2013 through 2015 Ford Escape with a 1.6 liter Ecoboost engine. Now when this valve fails, and it's going to fail, believe me, probably a couple times in the life of this vehicle, it's going to set a code P26B7. So it is an oddball code. And you're probably wondering, why is the cooling system setting check engine lights? Well, on these particular engines, they use these valves, a couple different valves in the engine compartment, to actually stagnate coolant flow throughout the engine upon a cold start so that the engine actually heats up faster. And this reduces cold start emissions and, of course, improves fuel economy. So luckily, with this engine compartment really packed in here with all the Ecoboost hoses and tubing and wiring in there and the extra hoses for all these cooling control valves, this valve is actually one of the easiest ones to replace. So it's the most common and it's the easiest to replace, luckily. So I'll go ahead and I'll link to the latest and greatest part from Ford down below. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, so let's take a look in the engine compartment and show you exactly where it's at. So right here next to the air filter box, right over here, this big blue valve is where it's at. So you can see it's pretty much on top compared to the rest of this mess. Look at this thing. Oh man, these engines are a pain to work on, especially with the cowling coming over the top there. So luckily it's right here. So the first thing we're going to need to do, of course, is open our coolant bottle. We're going to loosen it. We're going to pull the cap off of here. Make sure you're working on a cold engine. Release any kind of pressure from here. And some of these can be pretty tight. You can see this bottle's new for some reason, and the cap's all new, so it's coming right off of here. So we're going to release pressure on here, get the cap off, okay? And then we're going to go down below, and there's going to be a drain on the side of the radiator down. I'll show you that here in a second. Once the cooling system is drained, whole drained out into our drain pan down below, it's pretty easy at that point. So we'll come over here. There's the electrical connector right there. You can see it right there. We're going to push in on that locking tab right there. Push in on it and pull up on that. And then at that point, all I need to do is get a pliers in here, release the clamp, pull back on the hose and the clamp together, get it out of the way, and then there's just two bolts. That's it. They're 8mm, okay? You can just zing them off, and a little bit of coolant's going to leak out of there, no big deal. And then we can just go ahead and clean the surface up and bolt the new one back on. Put your hose back on, your clamp, connector, make sure you put it in till it clicks, and that's all there is to it. Torque spec on these two bolts is 89 inch-pounds, okay? Make sure those are nice and torqued. The new valve does have a seal on it already. So for this solenoid on here, I'll show you on the new one. This solenoid is mounted in there just like this, okay? So there's only two pins on it. It's a basic solenoid. If you want to check yours, pull the connector off, and then between those two pins on there, check the resistance. It should be 7 to 16 ohms. This brand new one, tested out right around 9.8 ohms. Okay, so it's right there in the meaty part of the range there, right in the middle. So yeah, you can see it's pretty easy. It's not too bad to get to. I would get this main power wire out of the way and stuff like that so you can get in a little bit better. But otherwise, it's right there. The hardest part is getting down there and draining the coolant and, of course, refilling and burping the system. So at this point, we're going to go ahead and show you where the coolant drain is on this side of the engine, on the driver's side. We're going to get it draining, and then I'll pull you guys back and watch me change it so you can see exactly how it's done. All right, let's go ahead and get that engine coolant draining. It's going to take a little while. So underneath your vehicle here, you're going to have an underbody shield, a fiber body shield underneath here, most of them. And there's going to be a bunch of like T30 screws all the way around. They kind of look just like that. They're all the way around. Take that off, get that out of the way, and we can have access up here to the drain for the radiator. You can see it's here on the driver's side. So we're simply going to take a pliers and turn that and kind of pull out at the same time, just a little bit, until we start seeing the coolant draining out of there. I use a 5/16 clear line on the nipple there to get it to come down and drain past there instead of just drooling out right here and collecting up inside of here. So let's go ahead and get that draining. You don't need to drain the system completely. I would say at least halfway, because that coolant valve's at a pretty high point in the cooling system. So let's go ahead and get that started. Once the cooling system is fully drained out, we can come back underneath here and go ahead and tighten the valve. We are done down here. For reference, you want to tighten the valve until it's a little bit sub-flush like you see here, and the valve itself is vertical, just like this. So it's going up and down like that. You don't want to over-tighten this. It's going to turn, lock, stop, and that's it. You don't need to tighten it any further. You don't want to crack the housing on here. All right, we're done down here. Let's go up top and change the valve. Back up top here, you can see I have a few different harnesses and stuff like that out of the way. Everything kind of clips onto each other in here. It's a real mess, but a lot of it just comes apart pretty easily. So you kind of part the ways and get in here. So I have the connector disconnected. All right, it's pretty simple. And then what I do a lot of times is I will just use a ratchet like this or a hand ratchet, get in there, loosen the bolts, take them out of there one by one, and take the valve and the hose out of here, bring it up to where I can work on it, and then I transfer the valve over to the hose. So it's not too bad. Not pulling much out of the way here. And we're just going to concentrate on getting these bolts out without losing them. This one, a lot of times the clamp is in the way of the bolt, which is unbelievable. So we'll go ahead and get this one out. On this side, it's a little easier to get to, and that's one. And then on this side, we can move it around a little bit more so we can get to the head of that bolt on there. There she goes. Just don't want to lose these bolts. Okay, so this one's kind of captured by it, so that's good to go. So what I'll do is I'll get some of these harnesses out of the way, get this guy to come back, twist around, and just kind of fight it through there. I know it sounds bad, but it's just all the convolute that's tubing that's just making all that noise. It's not actually cracking anything. All right, so there it is. So it's out in the open. You can see how this bolt is right in front of it there. I'll zoom in a little bit so you guys can see a little bit better. So that's the bolt that was a little bit hard to get to on the right-hand side. And you can see how the clamp from the factory is right in the way. But it kind of helps out because it captures it when it comes out of there. So that's the old one. So now it's up in the engine compartment here, and you can see it's a little bit easier to get to this clamp, and of course set it back on there correctly. At this point, what you want to do is set the orientation of that clamp and the hose on there. So pick a spot that's easy to get to, and that has a reference mark on there, like right here in the bottom. Should be able to see there's a reference mark there, a rib in the plastic. And you should be able to see that. See that rib in there? That's going to be on your new solenoid. So you just line it up, and you're good to go. So we'll go ahead and transfer that over. These clamps aren't too bad usually. Get this bolt out of here before he flies away. And now let's bring that down a little bit. And a lot of times you have to use your pliers to break it on here a little bit. It's pretty good. They can stick to the hoses. So hold it. Oh, baby. Just tight. All right, there it is. Make sure you guys can still see this, okay? So on the new one here, I'll just clean the inside of the hose. Make sure it's good to go. No scale inside of there. And now use some new engine coolant. And we'll lubricate it, and that'll help it go back on to the new one. All right, so here's the new one. And again, we'll just line up that rib with our mark on here. Oh, there she goes. And then you want to get this clamp again, line up the mark on there, because the hoses get like a memory to them after a while with these constant tension clamps. And if you don't drop in the same spot on there, it can actually cause a leak. So this one's a little off. Let's go ahead and get our bolt in there first. Okay, there we go. And now we'll line them up. I know I'm probably in your way, but this is an important part. I get it all lined up on there. Looks pretty good. I gotta bring the one side over more, it looks like. All right, that's good. I'm satisfied with that. All right, now with it all clamped up on there perfect, out here, we'll make sure our seal's still good to go in here. And then the other side, this little coolant manifold right here, has a little bit of leakage coming out of it. You want to make sure where it seals to it, that it's nice and clean too. All right, looks good to go. So this first bolt is already captured on here. You have to get it down and around this wire. And once it's down and past it, kind of bring it over without damaging the seal. Everything, you know, it's pretty tight in here, but it's definitely doable. So what I'll do, because that right side is captured by the clamp there, is I'll get this thing all lined up, and then we'll tighten it by hand. You want to get some of this stuff out of the way. Get this. It's tough to get down in here. This thing's like right here, and that's great. But some of this can be a pain. Take your time though, you want to do it once and do it right. Alright, so that guy's started. So I know we're not cross-threading, and then we'll get to the next one here. One that's easier to get to. And you're going to do the same thing. Make sure you're good to go and you're not cross-threading. If you can do it, you can get one finger underneath, like I'm doing right now, and one on the side there, and we'll spin in the right side bolt, you know, as far as we can. So we can get it away from that clamp, and it might be I would actually get a socket on there. Or she'd be close. All right, then go back together. We'll just snug it up on there. The other side's pretty good already. And now get it snug so we can torque it. And this guy. That baby's right there. All right. Now, lucky for me, I have this really nice small torque wrench, so I can get down in there and torque it. If you don't have a torque wrench, you're not sure, use a 1/4-inch ratchet with your 8mm deep on there, and just get down in there and just kind of snug it up, and then give it a little bit more, and it'll be good to go. You just don't want to crack the housing on there. So we're just snugging it up so that it can have a good seal. It's even this one. So we're torquing this to 89 inch-pounds. Not as far as I thought it was. There she goes. Torque this side down. It actually works pretty good if you get in from down below. And your clamp position may vary. Mine just happened to be right in front of it. Now, whenever you're torquing seals like this, you know, a component down that has seals to it, it's best to recheck afterwards. Like that one, I checked it a couple times, and then I'll go back to this one to recheck the torque in case it's settled at all. All right, that's good to go. So there you have it. Put this clamp back on here, and there was another one right here. All right, that one's good to go. This one's good, that's good. And then we have the electrical connector. So by doing it this way, you know, without, you know, bringing it up here and doing all this work, it's much, much better. You get that positive leak-free connection with the hose up here, and then down below we're able to get in with the torque wrench and torque it on there. So that should be good to go. At this point, we're going to go ahead and just refill the cooling system. If you don't have a vacuum bleeder for the system and you're filling it manually, there's a whole procedure of revving the engine and heating it and turning it off and adjusting it and everything else. It's a long procedure. I will link to that down below so you guys can reference that. No special tools required, and you'll be able to bleed your cooling system after the repair. All right, now once the valve is replaced and torqued down, cooling system is filled up and bled, I like to go back in on the scan tool, if you have it, and I do an on-demand test. So I already cleared the codes on there as far as continuous memory DTCs, but I like to do an on-demand test because that will find an issue with the coil. It'll test that circuit on there. So we do an on-demand test. It tests all the sensors and the output actuators and make sure the circuits are complete. So it'll test that bypass valve we just installed, and of course the wiring all the way back to the PCM and the driver all at once. So it's a handy little test to make sure it's okay electrically, and then of course if it finds there's any issues with the cooling system, with it sticking, you'll of course set another code on there. So before I changed it, it was setting that code on demand, that 26B7, it was setting it on demand because the circuit was open on there. So with it swapped out, everything passes electrically on here, cooling system's filled and bled, that is all there is to it. I'll see you guys next time.